time. So now hand over to Surendra Kumar.
Thank you, Mike. Hope I am audible.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And firstly, congratulations for you to initiate this kind of grouping on international studies pertaining to South India. It's a very good initiative, and I hope that this will continue and grow more and more. So today's topic is focusing on the changing geopolitical dynamics in South Asia, and I'll be speaking on three important issues in this 10 to 15 minutes. The first issue I'll be focusing on of various countries in the region has caused a lot of repercussions in the region, and then what is the way out. And secondly, I'll be focusing on why China matters more than earlier. For all the neighboring countries, China matters, and how countries are turning towards China, and what is the implications on India as a major power in the region. And thirdly, I'll be focusing on, there's a lot of euphoria on the regional cooperation coming back, that is from March 2020. You can see with the holding of the video conferencing of the SARC head of the states. So we could see that there's a euphoria, and people are arguing that SARC, it's a 2.0, SARC reloaded, or a new SARC emerging. So I'm trying to focus on these issues, whether it is really that's going to be true or not. These are the three issues on which I'll be focusing. The first one to begin with, I think in the recent times we could see clearly in South Asia that one of the important trends which is emerging is the unilateral action and maximalist position taken by respective countries. Although all the countries are independent and sovereign, and they have every right to take the decisions in their national interest, but at the same time they need to keep in mind the regional implications of whatever the unilateral decisions they tend to take. So we could see that it all began to certain extents in the August 2019 when India unilaterally tried to change the status quo of Jammu Kashmir, although it was claimed to be disputed territory at the international body like United Nations and claimed by many other countries. But still, India tried to change this status quo with revocation of Article 370. So with this kind of unilateral actions, I think, which was criticized obviously by Pakistan for obvious reason, and also China and several other countries were not in favor of the decision taken by India. Then subsequently, what happened was in December 2019, we could see that India coming up with this Citizenship Amendment Act. I think that was also again countries like Bangladesh said it called not supporting the kind of the bill or the act which was introduced in the Indian Parliament, whereas the other countries quietly argued that it's an internal affairs and India. But nevertheless, many countries tend to regard this was a unilateral action initiated by India, which has serious repercussions on the region, we could see. Then apart from this, in November 2019, where India came up with the new political map in which the certain parts of Kalapani, that is which Nepal claims to be its territory, and India also has been claiming that territory. And immediately the Nepal counterpart responded and criticized and then raised objection for this map being put forward by the Indian government. And the problem boiled down in the May 2020 when we could see that the Indian Defense Minister clearly announced the inauguration of 80-kilometer road link connecting Delhi and Tibet. And that's where the Nepalese government took very serious objection to it because of the fact that both the India and Nepal in 2014, I think when Modi government came to power, so they had constituted what we call it as an eminent persons group was constituted to look into the various issues of India-Nepal relations and also the open border. And they have submitted the report in July 2018. And as of now, the report has not been made public. And many people tend to argue or speculate that the most of the recommendations are not in favor of India. And the disputed territories also might not be in favor of India. So given this kind of scenario, generally Nepal has always been arguing that these territories belongs to them, and India has been claiming, although India for decades together had control over this Kalapani and the adjacent areas, and also not just civilian administration and other kind of control, even the military control over it. Even China also had never disputed or countered any of the Indian claim over these territory. But nevertheless, between India and Nepal, I think this became an important issue. And what is the outcome of this? We could see the Nepal coming up with its own political map, backing with the constitution amendment. We could see clearly that upset India. And both the point when India came up with the map in 2019 November, I think the Indian government did not consider the request of the Nepal in terms of engaging with any talks. Neither when Nepal has come up with this kind of initiative, neither there's any scope for any kind of talks between both the countries. And India has been, I mean, Nepal has been very silent in a very nationalist position we could see. So these are all the things which have really hurt the prevailing South Asian region. And Bhutan is no less also. We could see the Bhutan's maximalist position, particularly in Feb 2020. We could see Bhutan on two issues, I think, which the decision which it took really had taken India backward in the sense in terms of the India-Bhutan relations. We could see the first one was we could see that the Bhutan categorically said that it will be out of the multilateral motorway act. This was an agreement which was signed in June 2015 by Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Bhutan. And Bhutan had to ratify it, but it took such a long time, it did not ratify. And finally, the Bhutan gave a green signal for the other countries to go ahead and it will be out of this act. So clearly, Bhutan is emphasizing that the environment is a key factor, driving factor for them, and they'll not be part of this. And the other aspect, we could see that Bhutan attracts a lot of regional tourists from India, Maldives, and Bangladesh. And there was no entry fee for these tourists coming from these countries. Although entry fee for the tourists coming from the other countries, Bhutan had imposed entry fees, but there was no entry fees for India as such because Indians are the largest tourist visiting Bhutan. For more than 60% of the tourists Bhutan has been attracting, I think 60% comes from India. So given in this context, imposing of this entry fee, although the fees is very less, and it can be argued that just 1,200 rupees, but now compared to the other countries, what they are tourists, what they have to pay. But nevertheless, the bottom line remains is that how Bhutan can, despite the India-Bhutan relations being very strong, and Bhutan depending upon India, still Bhutan can come up with this issue or way it handle the multilateral motor vehicle agreement. So clearly demonstrate that Bhutan is slowly not necessarily going to be an before. So this is also one development which has taken place. And when it comes to Pakistan, we all know that India-Pakistan ties are all-time low since 2015. There's been no talks between both the countries, and the trade is also drastically declining. And India withdrawing of the most favored nation, although Pakistan had not offered most favored nation to India, but still India continued. But it was after the Pulwama attack that India withdrew this most favored nation benefit which was being given to Pakistan. So now with the downsizing of the Indian High Commission in Pakistan, similarly the Pakistan High Commission downsizing India. So clearly somewhere down the line, India and Pakistan ties are all-time low. At the same time, the diplomatic and people-to-people contacts, so other kinds of aspects are drastically declining, which has serious implications on the region. And in the recent times, couple of days, we could see the Pakistani increasing of their troops at the Indian border is also a concern for India. So given this kind of scenario where India is having a lot of tension, one side it is the COVID-19, the other side is the tension with Nepal, and of course the China's unilateral decision to alter the line of actual control. And there's a lot of contradiction in statements by India as well as from the China on this regard. So there's not much clarity on these aspects about. But nevertheless, these kind of unilateral decisions and maximalist positions are really hurting the region. So the way out is the talk and negotiations. Only then I think things would move, and then South Asia would benefit on a larger extent. Coming to my second point, that is why China matters. I think for all our neighboring countries, I think China matters more than ever before. And China is also capitalizing on the neighboring countries turning towards and neighboring countries are trying to balance both India and China. Nevertheless, there is a swing towards China to a certain extent we could see. And COVID-19, although has uh, the reputation of China has gone down drastically, but nevertheless, China has been able to capitalize to a certain extent through its mass diplomacy, whether it is to European countries or whether to Southeast Asian countries. Even in South Asia, also, all the countries had to look towards equipments. India was also one of the beneficiaries of this, although the quality of those supplies and equipments are being debated. But nevertheless, all the countries, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Bangladesh, all countries turned towards China, and China was forthcoming in capitalizing on this mass diplomacy. Apart from this, we could see, if you see the country wise, we could see Pakistan has always been dependent or a close ally of China. and economically, militarily, and also Pakistan needs China's help at the global level on issues of human rights, on the other at the UN Security Council, everything. So, and this BRI project has also been one of the important uh, benchmark which has brought Pakistan and China together. But BRI around the region also has serious problems, and Pakistan is also facing. But nevertheless, the countries are having a strong relationship, and then it is a very concern for India. When it comes to Sri Lanka, we could see apart from the infrastructure investment China has made in Sri Lanka, so one of the reasons why now Sri Lanka will be turning more towards China is that the debts, the China, I mean, where Sri Lanka has to pay the debts. I think this year alone, I mean, overall, you could see Sri Lanka has around 50% of its GDP, and the debts with India, Sri Lanka has around 960 million US dollars, and Sri Lanka is asking for some kind of relief over this. And so, as of now, the talks are still yet to conclude. And despite several requests from Sri Lanka, Indian government is, we know that it's been preoccupied with the tension with China, Nepal, and Pakistan. Might be that could be the reason, but nevertheless, Sri Lanka has been asking for some kind of relief on these debt issues. And China has already played an important role by sanctioning around 500 million loan for the Sri Lanka to overcome the COVID-19 impact. And also now there is an agreement between the China Development Bank and the Ceylon Bank on 140 million US dollars worth facility agreements have been happening. So over the point I'm trying to say is somewhere down the line, because of the Chinese huge investment in the region, some report says it is from 2006 to 19, around 12 billion US dollars have been invested by China in Sri Lanka. And apart from this, the China-led Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, I think that has become the third largest multilateral lender for Sri Lanka. So given all these things, somewhere down the line, if India doesn't come forward in helping the Sri Lanka, I think Sri Lanka would tilt towards China. And already given the Rajapaksa family in power, that is also one factor. And apart from this, Sri Lanka also needs the China support at the various international bodies, particularly the Human Rights Council, where the human rights issues on Sri Lanka would come up, and that's where they would need. So given this kind of scenario, somewhere down the line, Sri Lanka is also trying to tilt towards or move towards China. We could see with would be invested in Bangladesh for various infrastructures and various other projects in Bangladesh through the BRI. And apart from this, we all know that the Bangladesh and China relationship have been drastically improved. There's a lot of cooperations and understanding or agreements on defense and trade and other aspects. And now, when the recent times, more just a week before, we could see that China announced zero tariff for more than 97% of Bangladesh export, which mainly consists of fisheries and leather goods. So this is a good gesture, although China would argue that this is for the beneficial of the least developed countries. But nevertheless, more than 80,000 Bangladesh products will be zero tariff, and that's where the Bangladesh is going to benefit. And apart from this, also we could see both the countries have understanding on several issues, whether it is countering terrorism and other critical issues. And more recently, China has put forward a proposal of system Bangladesh government, that is the collaboration between the cities of China as well as Bangladesh, where there will be commerce and cultural exchange and interaction. So this kind of proposals have been put forward to the Bangladesh, and also to have a better understanding or deepening of their relationship. And Bangladesh, I mean Nepal also, with more funding of the Chinese, and then Maldives also faces serious debt crisis. But nevertheless, China's free trade agreement and China's influence is very much there in Maldives. So all these countries getting closer to China is a cause of a concern for India. And what India needs to do is to reorient its neighborhood for first policy, because it has to implement in both letter and spirit the neighborhood policy. Because just saying the policy and not doing much concrete at the ground level doesn't make sense. So India needs to reshape or reorient its neighborhood policy. That's very important to ensure that the China doesn't have much say, because now we cannot discuss South Asia without mentioning of China. So this is the one. And coming to my last point, that is about the SARC, the regional cooperation. Many tend to argue that the development which happened in March 2020 with the holding of video conferences of all the head of the state participating on the Indian initiative, excluding the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan was not present, but nevertheless he was represented by his health ministers. So nevertheless, many people argue that the SARC is back, SARC is it's a 2.0 or new SARC has emerged. But the bottom line remains it was a very significant development, much needed breathing space of SARC, saying that SARC is not going to gain much, and neither India is going to gain, neither region is going to gain. But nevertheless, the developments was very critical, where India put forward the COVID-19 emergency fund as a part of the SARC, and India agreed to contribute around 10 million US dollars. Subsequently, other countries also chipped in and said that they would be also contributing millions of dollars for this. And Pakistan, off late, also agreed to pledge around 3 million US dollars and setting up of this COVID-19 disaster management center in Gandhinagar, and India also to get how to handle the COVID-19. All these kind of measures and several other measures by India has really given a hope that this arc would be progressing and then it will not look back. But nevertheless, the point I would like to argue is that the unless and until the summit, SARC summit, which is not last summit was held in 2014 and it was in 2016 that it was supposed to be held in Islamabad. So it has not happened unless and until the summit or SARC summit doesn't take place at the highest level. I think unlikely that SARC will going to make any great. Then is that in the recent times or in near future also the summit will not happen because India is still one of the precondition of India has informally put forward is that Pakistan has to show some kind of um, what you can say development when it comes to countering the cross-border terrorism. So I think Pakistan has not been able to satisfy India, and neither India can expect that Pakistan is going to completely do away with all the cross-border terrorism, which has been sponsored to a certain extent by the Pakistani intelligence and the Pakistani army altogether. So given this kind of scenario, any kind of summit is not going to take place. Though there is a pressure from Nepal and Sri Lanka to hold the summit, but still India has been reluctant on this aspect we could see. And second thing is also India as well. So keep in mind, there's from 2019 we could see that India is slowly drifting away from the SARC. Just once in a while we have the SARC satellite launch or the SARC COVID-19 response and other things. But apart from this, concretely you could see India somewhere to the line is people tend to argue that is moving towards the ceremony of Narendra Modi government when they came back second term. I could see all the leaders of the BIMSTEC were invited, and even Jaishankar, foreign minister, argued that the SARC is a jammed vehicle and other things. So in this kind of context, people argued that now India is looking beyond SARC. I always tend to argue that identity because of the history. And apart from this, BIMSTEC also had its own problems. We could see BIMSTEC since 1997. It was established so far. Only they had only 4 summits, and then the 5th summit is due in Colombo. But because of the COVID-19, we don't know how it is going to take place. But apart from this, the free trade agreement of the BIMSTEC has not made any. It has not been implemented, or the counterterrorism agreement is also not implemented. Then apart from this, BIMSTEC has a large potential of intra-regional trade to happen, but still if you see it is only 6%, just 1% less than the SARC intra-regional trade. On several projects which have been implemented on connectivity is still not completed, and so on that way BIMSTEC also has serious problems because Thailand and Myanmar have wants to have more close ties with the ASEAN rather than with the BIMSTEC. So there are critical issues. Even the Motor Vehicle Act agreement under the BIMSTEC has also not taken off. So given all this problems, I tend to argue that SARC is still important for India, and only the SARC, India has to take a lead, and only then the SARC will become proactive. As long as India doesn't take an active part in SARC, doesn't lead, I think the SARC is not going to take off. So this kind of piecemeal kind of gesture, like it happened in the COVID-19 crisis, is not going to help the regional cooperation, and even the security is also issue need to be discussed in the SARC. And overall, I tend to argue that India can only break or make SARC. India has a huge responsibility, and India cannot completely stick on the cross-border issues and not take the SARC forward. So with this, I conclude, and I thank the organizers for giving this opportunity. Hope I have not crossed the 15 minutes.